When I was younger, I would always never listen to anyone. I wouldn't listen to anyone who needed, like, wanted to help me or if they had advice for me. I never really cared. I always thought I could just do it myself, figure my own path out. And because of that, I'm not particularly in the best spot. Mainly concerning my mental health, I was ignoring genuinely all of the advice and outreach and support I was given because at the time I just didn't think what they were saying was useful or would help me at all. I thought they were just full of bullshit. And because of that, I'm now here, and the strides I've made in my mental health in the last 2 years, I could have made a lot sooner if I had just listened when I needed to listen. I noticed that it is a very human instinct to kind of just reject outreach from others, trying to reject support, mainly as men. It's very easy to just say no, I got this, and to try and handle it yourself. Today I wanted to talk about how some people, again mostly men, just don't want help no matter what, and because of that you have to adjust, in high school I never took any advice for my mental health. I would always listen to sad, depressing ass music, and I would be told all the time, dude, if you stopped filling your brain with the most depressing shit all the time, you'd most likely feel a little bit better. It doesn't change the situation you're in. It doesn't change the chemical imbalance in your brain, but it changes what input you're putting in. It changes, like, the slightest changes will impact you significantly. I've talked about this before in a video I just did, like, fully on music, but whatever you're listening to, whatever comes in will come out. Whether it's what you're eating, what you're listening to, what you're watching, your input is so important. What you're inputting is so important. And I just didn't at the time I didn't think that was real. I thought that was so bullshit. I'm like, listening to happy music is gonna make me happy? That sounds stupid as shit, right? But again, some things, I mean, most of the most helpful shit, most of the most, like, real and actual true information you'll ever hear is some of the most simplest stuff ever. Eating less junk food makes you more energized and less sluggish. But it's all food. It's all, like, it's meat, it's burgers. Oh, but just better quality ingredients, you feel better. You don't. It's not like an immediate connection, but when you do it, you notice it. I noticed that when I just started listening to not necessarily happier music, like a music about being happy, but just not listening to like, again, like the most depressing shit ever. Moving away from that, I started to feel a lot less depressed. I stopped filling my mind with more constructive, reaffirming thoughts of depression, and I started feeling better. And I noticed that in in my in my life, I'm very I'm very closed off when it comes to support. I noticed that just as a guy, as men, it's very easy to just, no, I got this. Don't worry, I can do this myself, or I don't need your help. Like, I'm a one man army kind of deal. I'm a lone wolf. It's very easy to kind of isolate yourself in times of need, whether it's based off pride, off wanting to appear strong and appear like you can handle your own shit, or whether it's due to not wanting to be a bother to some people. It all leads to the same road of isolating yourself when you need that help. And when people do reach out to you and try to offer their support, you reject it because, no, I'm either too prideful and I don't need your help and I can solve this myself, or I don't want to be a bother to you. I don't want you to have to worry about me. I'm okay, kind of deal. Either way, it's super easy to just no, I can do this myself. And I've been on both sides of that coin. I've been on the side of the coin where I don't want people's help and I want to do things myself and solve my own issues, but I've also been on the side where I'm trying to relay my own support. I'm trying to reach out and offer a helping hand. So I have some experience on this to talk about. Mainly on the side, what I want to focus on today is the side of the guy reaching out. I noticed that in moments like that where your support is rejected, that isn't like that isn't the end all be all. There's still ways to influence people into bettering themselves without direct here's what you need to do, I'm here for you, let's get this like planned out. I noticed that for me at least, whenever I was the one rejecting support, at some point I caved. I caved in. I said, you know what? Let me just give it a try. Let me just if these people are saying this, and this works, and like what I'm doing hasn't been working, let's just let's just try what they have. Might as well. But I noticed like at that point, it wasn't them constantly reassuring me or like affirming me about what they wanted to help me with. They just gave me the advice and backed off and let me figure it out on my own. So I've noticed, especially with my friend, when I'm trying to like kind of coach him in his part of life right now, I've noticed that if I just give him the information and just watch from afar, it's kind of like just watching in like mice in lab experiments. You just give them resources and you just watch them do what they need to do, and then they'll figure it out. Being a very hands off in your way of support can be very helpful depending on the situation, depending on the severity of the situation, really. And I've noticed that, especially if someone is teetering towards that edge of where it becomes very they're a danger to themselves or others, that is when you need to understand that this is no longer your field, and like you're not the professional. All you can do at that point is either alert someone of a higher authority or just try your best to give them the resources that they need. Not necessarily that they want, but that they need. I've also noticed that when you're in this position where you offer the support and they give an excuse as to why they don't want it, or maybe they just don't they take it and just don't listen and apply it. In certain situations, I've noticed that if you just call them out and be super blunt about it and real, it really breaks down the point to them in the most simplest terms. I'm very, very good at just being blunt with people because I noticed that, especially online, there's so much coddling and like, oh, it's not your fault. It's this and that. It's you're like, you know what I mean? Everyone is super. I don't want to say soft, but they're all. It's like you're talking to a child, and you're trying to ease down what you're trying to say and dumb it down to a more palatable, digestible like way of understanding instead of just being straight up telling them how it is so they can finally realize. I know, especially for me at least, being coddled fucking sucks. Like, not only do I feel dumb, but I like dumb that I'm being talked to this way, but I feel like it's like so dehumanizing. I think coddle like trying to be soft and nurturing when you're trying to relay something really important to someone, and especially about their mental health, that's like the worst thing you can do. Or if they're in a difficult part of their life, no one wants to be talked to like a fucking child. No one wants to be coddled. All right, it's not helpful. If anything, it's like reaffirming to them that they're weak and that they need to be talked to like a child in order to find a solution. I'm very upfront. I've done this multiple times where I just tell someone straight up like, dude, you're a fucking like you're a loser. You're dead ass a loser, bro. And I hate seeing you like this, so you need to make some major adjustments in your life so you can stop being a fucking loser. I feel like that's the only way to get to someone And not to just and again, this is not like you're just telling them these things and you're being rude about it. Of course it's going to come off like rude, but you have to be firm. I'm trying to be firm instead of just outwardly rude. I the other day, oh, not the other day, like a couple weeks ago, I was talking to my friend about how he just needs to be himself. He can't constantly be looking for codependency with someone. He just needs to be him. And I'm like, dude, you have not been single in the last like fucking 5, 6 years, bro. You're a loser. Like there's no you. It's always you and someone else. And I was being very blunt about it. And yes, there are like points in that where you have to just be rude given the context. Depending on what like situation you're addressing, you have to just be rude. But it has to come up rude in the face, but then when you reel back and see the entirety of your message, you understand like he's talking from a place of love and a place of wanting you to be better. It's very nuanced when you're trying to address someone in that position because you have to understand not only their reception style of how they're going to receive it, but also the the way in which you deliver it. Again, I'm very blunt. I'm very just like straight up. If someone has a problem and they're just constantly coming to me about it, first time I'll just keep it real. Just, hey man, I understand we can work through this, but if it's a continuing problem, I just have to be straight up like, dude, you're dead ass a fucking loser. And I need you to change to not be a loser anymore. You know what I mean? What I'm trying to say here is that when people reject your help or when people are dismissive to your help, you have to find ways to either directly or indirectly still get your message across to at least provide them the resources that they may not necessarily want, but that they need in order to find their own path to recovery, if that makes sense. For me, I just all I needed was the tools and I was able to move myself along to discover my path to recovery. If you have people in your life that are very much like they come to you with their problems, not necessarily in the way that they want you to be their therapist, but they just want someone to talk to. Sometimes you just need to put your foot down and just keep it 100 with them and say, hey, dude, you have a problem and this is really affecting you and you're not doing anything about it. And I feel like because of that, something may happen that no one wants. So if you aren't going to deal with this problem, or if you're not even going to like address it in a way that's meaningful, I'm going to need you to do something about it or else I will, you know? Or if they have a problem and they come to you about it and they're addressing it in a way, or even if they're not addressing it, just like I've even done it with like people I know who are hoarders. I just straight up go to them like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, why do you have this problem? And then like I'll initiate it to be able to get them into a vulnerable spot, like put them on the back foot, and then I reel them back in with some sort of supportive like message at the end to know that to tell make sure they know that I'm trying to help them in a way that isn't just me being a dick. Even though it does, when you are blunt and when you are just upfront about it, it's always gonna sound like you're an asshole unless you're trying to baby them and coddle them, which is not what I'm trying to do. I think that's stupid. So if you are in like being upfront, you're always gonna sound like an asshole. But that's just that's the burden you have to bear in order to get your point across in the most straightforward fashion to allow them to recover and recoup and become better. Thank you.